Ladies and gentlemen, if you understand what chasing a tornado can be a metaphor for, please let me know, because I am baffled.
It's a literary device.
I know what a metaphor is. What's poppin', y'all? Welcome to Post Finale. I'm your host, Ankit Madhira. I'm an actor and a musician who has not seen a lot of films, so to make my friends happy and potentially provide a new perspective on those popular films, I am on a quest to change that. Never on this quest alone, however. This week, I am once again joined by the founder of Partake Meal Planning and a health coach, Megan Gaul. Megan, welcome back. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm really excited for this second part.
Wonderful. I am as well. It's been a whole 3 minutes since we last spoke. A week for the listeners, but 3 minutes, just enough time to refill some water, grab a coffee. But that's pretty much it. So before we jump back into the film, and we are talking about Twister this week, ladies and gentlemen, the 1996 film, not the current film that is out. As far as I know, the film should be out, the new one. It's called Twisters, because apparently they were like, we need to make it different, so there are multiple Twisters. Not like there aren't multiple Twisters in this film. So that film is also coming out, but that's not the one that we're discussing. But Megan, you're the one that recommended this film to me. So I have a question for you. Other than, I would say, Jo, because she's the main female lead. As far as I know, you aren't an actor, but if you were an actor, who would you want to play in this film?
Oh, that's a great question. So besides Jo, okay, all right.
I feel like Jo's a really easy answer.
It is, because she's just so damn cool.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had to play someone else, it would probably be Dusty. He's just
nice.
He's just excellent. He's just fun. He's lighthearted. He keeps the energy up, and he keeps everything easy breezy, even when things get rough. So I would say Dusty.
Yeah, no, that would be my choice as well.
You too? Okay.
I really enjoy Dusty. It's very fun. It's a fun character to play. The other choice for me would probably be Jonas.
Yeah, you can sink your teeth into those like mean lines.
Oh, I love playing villains. It's so much fun. I wish I got more opportunities to play villains.
Any notable villains that we would know that you've played?
That I have played notable villains.
Or that you really want to play, like famous villain roles that you could sink your teeth into.
I mean, like, I would love to play just, like, honestly, any Disney villain. They're really fun in any of the musicals. I would say I want to play Jafar, but then that's a weird one because I feel like I would rather want to, like, I rather would want to play Aladdin.
I feel like Ursula would be really fun. Like,
Ursula would be fantastic. I think
that would be excellent.
Out of, at least like in Disney films, if they never will, but like if they created like some type of live action, and I hope that they never do, I would love to play Syndrome from The Incredibles.
Oh, I forgot about him. That would be great.
He's really fun.
Yeah, that's great. I always forget about that movie, but it is fantastic. It's always a good time.
I love that movie. It's a fantastic movie. So yeah, we're talking about Twister, and where we left off, ladies and gentlemen, they're off, and they are going to go find the first tornado. So we have Dusty's truck, and it's called the Brand Burner. Fantastic name.
I didn't realize that.
I think it's Bran. It might be Barn, but Bran makes me happier, so I'm going to go with Bran.
Bran.
Probably Barn, and I typed it wrong.
I don't remember seeing the name of his van, but if I had to bet a paycheck, it would go on Barn Burner. But I would put a little bit on Brand Burner just for the fun of it.
Yeah. Look. 98% of me is telling me that I typed it wrong and it's Barn Burner. But I want the 2% to be right. So, meanwhile, Melissa gets a call, and it's Donald. And I'm like, who is Donald? Donald is feeling inadequate. Julia doesn't resent him, is what Melissa says. She didn't marry you for your penis. Well, she didn't marry she didn't marry you only for your penis. What's going on with Donald? I want that story. Someone write me that film. Screw it, I'll play Donald.
Now that would be, if they made a remake of Twister and it was all on Donald, that would be something. That's a challenge for a writer. Right? I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to do that. Like, please write me a Twister sequel. Main
focused on Donald and his marital problems. And trying to get in contact with this person while she's chasing tornadoes. Which, again, different gripe with that. We'll get to it in a bit. So, the tops are spiking over 40K, which is apparently a good thing. Joe asks Bill where he met Melissa. And Bill cuts her off and says, I don't want to fight. And Joe's like, I'm just talking. And Bill's like, I don't want to fight. And Joe's like, she's nice. And Bill's like, ha, she's not nice. No, I know what you meant. And she's just like, you do? Yes. And Joe's like, look, I am trying to make extremely civilized conversation, and you, Bill, are biting my head off. She's got a point. She has got a point. She hasn't done anything antagonizing.
The whole movie so far, by the way, has been Bill has this undercurrent of like crazy tension, like some kind of frustrating anger at Joe. Just he's keeping it just under the surface, but you can hear like him like, are you thinking this? Are you going to say this? Like he's like they have some kind of history. We don't know what it is exactly.
I feel like they will tell us what happened between the two of them.
Yeah, but it's just palpable. Like it doesn't even matter what happens because like you could just tell like they've fought like this 1,000 times, and it's just naturally coming right back up.
It's just like, beautiful, lovely. So Bill says, yes, she is nice. She's a therapist. And then there's a silence, and then Joe just goes, yours? And Bill gets ticked off by this. He's like, you couldn't resist.
It's like a 10-second pause. Like there's 10 seconds of no conversation, just showing the two of them in the front of the car. Like he's like, she's a therapist. And then it's just like, Joe's just looking like,
do I say it? Do I not? Do I say it? Do I not? What do I do?
And Bill's like, don't you dare say it. And then suddenly she just goes, yours?
It's so good. It's just so quiet and subtle of just like, yours? Like just so innocent. And Bill's mad. He's like, you couldn't resist. And Joe's like, look, I never said you needed therapy. I'm just saying this is where most people tend to meet therapists. Statistically speaking, you tend to meet a therapist when you are in therapy. Sometimes it turns romantic. It's messy, I feel like, if it does, but like whatever. So Bill asks what he could possibly need therapy for. And Joe just goes on a list, and she goes, I don't know, inability to finish things, rushing into things you can't fully commit to. And Joe's just like, Bill is like, hey, you walked out. I showed up in the first place. And Joe's like, Bill, there's a whole road situation happening. And Bill's just like, no, doesn't care about the road. And he's just like going off being like, Joe, you don't know what it means to be married. Stability, supportiveness, neat things like that. You don't understand that. Meanwhile, Bill isn't paying attention, and the truck starts to veer off the road. And Joe just very calmly just goes, can I drive? No. Then would you? He looks up and he almost runs into like a tractor.
Oh my God. Ridiculous.
Fantastic
it's
scene.
Nice. It's a great scene because it lets you really dig into how like freaking mad they are at each other. I don't know. It's just the tension is fantastic. And Bill Paxton is a great mad guy. He's a great guy. He's a great ranting guy. Like,
yeah,
he had a lot to chew on in that scene. It was great.
It's fantastic. So Joe says someone should warn her about your temper, and they just keep arguing. Meanwhile, Bucket Hat and Denim, I don't know if I know Denim's name, but like, sure, he's called Denim now. He will probably have another name later because I am bad with faces. But Bucket Hat and Denim, and they're just like, they're getting better at this. I love that they can hear the entire argument that's going on.
Yeah, it's great. Right over the CB radio or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like, they can just hear it, and they're just like, things are going well. So Joe's just like, look, as long as you're happy. And Bill's just like, thank you. I'm a happy man. I'm happy with my life, the way things are going. And I'm like, well, you don't sound very happy. You seem to only be happy when you're chasing a storm. We'll see how long happiness survives. So Denham, meanwhile, sees that the funnel is forming, and Denham just radios in, and he's like, hey guys, are you gonna wrap this up pretty soon? And Bill's just like, what? And he's like, nothing. I was just wondering if we were gonna chase this tornado, or you wanted to wait for the next one. Fantastic delivery. Just like, I was just curious. So Bill notices the tornado. They veer off, and Jonas says, follow them, when they find out that they turned left. And Joe and the team are moving to intercept. And Joe is telling Bill to cut across the field. Bill says that he knows what he's doing, asks if she wants to drive. And Joe's like, I would love to. And Bill's like, no.
Buckle up.
Yeah. He just says, pretty much what he says is tighten your seatbelt. And he's like, ooh. And then he tightens her seatbelt.
With a manic grin. Like a manic grin.
He's like, you say I've lost my edge. This is what you get.
This man is like on the edge of a knife the entire movie, with Jonas, with Joe, with everybody.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe he does need therapy.
He definitely needs therapy, 100%. I can tell you that.
The road is very bumpy, and they're trying to get out, and they can't. And Joe's like, "Are you mad?" And this is a fantastic line where Bill's just like, "I'll be mad later. Right now, I'm trying not to kill us."
Love it.
Fantastic. He has his priorities straight. I can give you that.
Yeah. Yes, he does. And I think this whole scene is like the perfect mix of editing action into great one-liners, and not like unnatural one-liners, just like great, funny, fun, engaging one-liners. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, this is another beautiful quote. Like, if you're ever in a high-stress situation and someone's mad at you, there you go. I'll be mad later. Right now, I'm trying not to kill us. Hopefully, listeners, none of you find yourself in a position where this quote is applicable, unless you're playing a video game. So, the funnel is getting thicker, and it's moving fast, coming towards Joe and Bill. And the tornado is right behind them, and it's starting to turn. And the tornado is too close, and Joe is told to get out. There is a bridge, and Bill can't get out because the side it's too steep. And they crash into the bridge. And Joe's like, see, that wasn't so bad. And meanwhile, Bill's just like, why can't we spend a normal day together?
Tornado's still bearing down on them, by the way. They're not out of the woods.
They're just having a conversation. Like, again, but it gives you that sense of like, they've done this hundreds of times. Like, they are used to this. Like, this is, they can still have a conversation while doing this. They get out. Joe goes to the back to try to deploy Dorothy, but they are right on the damage path, and it's too close. And Bill gets her under the bridge and tells her to hold on to something. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a guess. It's not a wild one. But they're going to fail 2 more times, and then they're finally going to get Dorothy to work on the final attempt, because they have 4 total Dorothys. This is going to be fail number 1. Meanwhile, Jonas is never going to succeed to even get one up into the air, is most likely what's going to happen. He's just going to consistently be on their tails. So, or if he does, it's going to be the same one at the end, but his system isn't going to work. Something like that. Okay. So one of those things is going to happen with Jonas. The tornado gets closer and closer, and Joe starts crawling towards it because she wants to see. And Bill's like, have you lost your mind? And she grabs her, pulls her back under the bridge. The tornado hits, it takes Joe's truck, and it lands on top of the bridge. Well, the truck doesn't, but it also takes the top of the bridge. Meanwhile, somehow Joe and Bill are okay.
Yeah, they're holding on to that bridge, and they're okay. Even with Joe crawling away from the bridge to look at it, which, if you notice, remember you were talking about the blue light in the last episode? The blue light when she's a kid looking up at the tornado? Same exact scene, just with Helen Hunt looking up at the tornado, like
Yeah.
lit face. So this woman is also crazy. Bill's crazy, but she's also crazy.
It's why they're compatible. So, I mean, I'm just like, okay, but like, this is one thing that always did confuse me. Because even in like school, I don't know where you grew up, but if anyone grew up anywhere near tornado areas and there were tornado warnings, you would have tornado drills at school. And for my listeners that are not in the US, this is pretty much what would happen. Like the siren would go off and we would all have to like get under our desks and put our hands over our heads. I understood putting the hands over your head so that if anything flies around, it doesn't hit your head directly, it hits into your arms. Cool. If a tornado were to actually hit the school, how does hiding under a desk help?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's probably if the building collapses, there's a structure above you so that hopefully there's a pocket of air and stuff that hasn't sunken down on you. Like that's just my guess. I grew up in New York, so we didn't have tornado drills. We just had shelter drills, like kind of like for, I think they were like the new version of the nuke drills. Like it used to be the duck and cover drills, but these are more like not earthquake, but just natural disaster drills. But we would be, this was even stupider, I think, paraded out into the hallway and all standing against the walls, like with our heads against the walls, like for, 30 seconds. I don't know what that was supposed to do either. I don't know. And this was pre Sandy Hook, like gun active shooter drills. We didn't have those when I was younger, but I don't know
we had those.
Okay.
Because it was still like pre Sandy Hook and everything, but it was after Columbine, which for anyone that isn't aware, if I'm not mistaken, Columbine happened in the early 90s. I don't remember exactly when it happened.
91. I might be making that up.
I don't know. It happened early-ish 90s, early to mid 90s, but it was like the first big school shooting that had happened, and I want to say it was in Colorado. So I think it was after that
yeah,
they started.
99 actually.
99. Okay, cool. So I was alive. Good to know. Never mind, not early 90s, late 90s. So I do want to say it was like April 19th, 1999.
Let's see if you're right. April 20th.
Oh, so close. Because I remember it is near my sister's birthday. So that's why I know that. That's why I remember the date. But like, yeah, so because it was after that, like we did have those, and there were a couple of times because the middle school that I went to for the first 2 years was in like a rougher neighborhood. So like, we never had anyone come into the building or anything, but like, there would have been like a gang shooting, like, 3-4 blocks away, and they would have shut down the school because they were like, okay, like, no, we have to make sure that everything is safe. And there's like a whole perimeter, right, all around the school of like, I think it's like a 2-mile perimeter or something. I don't know exactly how far the perimeter is, but they would like shut down. So it didn't matter if any occurrence happened within the 2 miles, they would shut it down. At least that's how our schools work. But like, yeah, I don't know. Listeners, what drills did you have growing up?
Do you know the point of the tornado drills, why they were under a desk?
That too. Like, I understood, like, okay, like, great, if debris was gonna fall, like, there was a desk on top to protect you. But it always fascinated me on if a tornado actually hit a school, how would hiding under a desk help?
Yeah. And I remember the one time I experienced a tornado warning, I was visiting family in the suburbs of Chicago, and I was at like not in medieval times, they had like some kind of like play place, some kind of like fun station type arcade thing that we were at. And the tornado warning happened, but we were marched to the basement. So to me, that makes a little more sense. You're in the foundation, it's more like a shelter. That makes sense to me. Maybe go under a desk because people don't have time to get all the kids down to the basement. I have no idea.
Also, some of the schools might not have basements. Like, I don't know.
True.
Because I know, like, in Washington, where my family lives now, basements aren't as common.
Okay, so that depends.
So
So the
depending on
point
where
is
you are in the
here,
country, I know that sometimes like places have basements, sometimes places don't. So like things like that.
the Twister movie is playing a little fast and loose with what the wind can pick up and what it won't. And usually it picks up unimportant things or dramatic things like a dad or a car, and it doesn't pick up important things like Joe and Bill.
Yeah.
That's what
So
we're
Joe and
learning.
Bill, they crawl out, and Joe's like, "Where's my truck?" And right then, the truck lands right in front of Melissa, who swerves to miss it and starts freaking out. And I'm like, "Oh, there's the freaking out." And then she just goes, "Oh, there it is. Perfect timing." Like
And again,
nonchalant, just where's my truck? Oh, there it is.
yeah. And if I was like looking back now, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, she's freaking out for no reason. She's not as cool as Joe. And now I look back and I'm like, I would freak out.
Yeah, especially because like I'm not in that element. Like,
Yeah, I don't
it's
want to hate
me.
her just for being a human. That's how I'm coming to it now. But yes, she freaks out, and you're all meant to understand. She's uptight. She's not as cool as everyone else.
She's not cool. So Bill says that they are perfectly safe. Meanwhile, Dorothy is gone. Dusty is laughing, saying, "Good news! It flew!" And I'm like, Dusty never change. And again, he's not wrong.
It did fly, just not the way. Again, this is my point. If all the sensors are in a barrel, then it's going to lift up the barrel, and maybe it'll take some of the sensors out. But like, they should be out of a barrel.
You make a valid point. Again, I didn't create the film. I wasn't born when it came out. So
Fix this. Fix it.
I will try. I really hope that they do in the next one, but we'll see. Based on what you've told me about the trailer, it doesn't look promising. So the whole reason, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't seen the trailer is, again, I have no idea if there is a connection to this film. So if they're bringing back a character, if they're doing something, I don't want to be spoiled because of that. That's the only reason I haven't seen the trailer for the new one. So trying to make sure that I avoid any possibility of seeing a spoiler. So I don't remember who said it, and they just go, "Oh, what was it like?" And he just goes, "Windy." That's intense. Fantastic. Jonas and his crew come up behind, and the driver says, "Maybe we should stop, see if they need help." And I'm like, "Aw, he has a heart." And Jonas is like, "Nah, they're fine, keep moving." And I was like, "I'm sorry, let me rephrase. The driver has a heart." Joe gets her bag out of the truck, gets some things out of it, and asks Bill if he has full coverage on the truck, and it's like, liability only. And Joe's like, "Oh no." And it's like, liability only. And Bill's like, no, Joe, you are not getting the truck. There's no way. This is not going to happen. Oh, look, Joe got the truck. So.
Yes. I do want to interject here. I want you all to remember, if you haven't seen Twister and you're watching it at the same time, remember that that driver has a heart, because it's going to come back later. I'm not going to give anything away, but just remember that driver has a heart. And maybe you'll like where it goes, and maybe you really won't like where it goes. But I want you to remember that.
Does the driver, I mean, I know you won't say anything, but like maybe the driver betrays Jonas, and that's why Jonas gets sucked into a twister. I don't know.
It's a mystery, but it will be revealed.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, but the driver has a heart. I will say, like, and we'll talk about it a bit later, out of everybody in the crew, of Jonas's crew, I like the driver.
Yeah, I think he's the only one that has a line, though. I don't think anyone else in the crew has a line.
No. One of them does earlier when they're talking about the weather storms in that cafe thing, the diner that we discussed in the at the very end of the last episode. So they have a couple lines here and there, but like not important lines, and like they have a couple more later, but like they're all like jargony lines.
They're nameless, faceless, jargony, black shirt wearing, corporate sponsor people. Corporate sponsored.
So Joe says the battle zone is just across 81, and Melissa's confused about what is going on, and Bill's like, "Oh, we're going again." And when Melissa's just like, "What the f***? You almost got killed." And it's like, "Nah, that was just a close call." "Oh yeah, because a tornado going directly over you and the physics not working again is a close call, not almost killed." Sure, understood.
This is why Melissa is a helpful character, because she's like us. Like, she's like, what do you mean you're going again? Like, what do you mean that wasn't a close call? Like, what are you talking about? She's a helpful
Melissa,
character.
very helpful character, but also
Mhm.
story writers have done a very good job of making it
Mhm.
you don't want to root for Melissa.
Yeah, they did her dirty.
They did her dirty, but Melissa is a very, very important character in this film, and I don't think this film would work without a Melissa.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So I was like, oh, look, they're going to catch another tornado. Meanwhile, Jonas and the crew are finding out the perfect position to proceed. So this is where some of those mindless, jargony lines come through. And, the ragtags have showed up. That's what I've deemed the name of this crew.
Joe's crew.
Yeah. It's the ragtags. Because they don't have corporate funding.
No.
They have funding, but it's run out. So this is
They're
like kind of like their
scrappy.
last go.
They're
They're
scrappy.
scrappy. They're scrappy.
Mhm.
So the driver is just like, you got to admire their spirit. Again, I like this driver. He's a good guy. Billy suddenly stops and he looks at the angle, the updraft, and he's like, oh, it's going to shift. It's going to turn left. And they reverse and they turn and catch a different path that Jonas has taken. And Donald has called back and now talking to Julie now as well. And the chasers are getting close. And meanwhile, Melissa is telling Julie that with Donald's fertility, they aren't going to have this baby the old-fashioned way. We then learn she's a reproductive therapist. My question, how does she have a signal?
I don't know. I don't know what tornadoes and storm systems do to 1996 cell phone towers and signals. I wish someone would tell us. But are you saying that like you're suspicious of the ease with which she can reach all her clients when they're chasing tornadoes?
I'm not suspicious of like, that, but like you just got run over by a tornado. You're chasing another one. There's massive storms, and yet you have a perfect signal?
Yeah. I'm suspicious. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense scientifically.
Scientifically, no. We had a hurricane come through. I think it was when I was in 5th grade, if I remember right. I don't remember the year exactly. I want to say 5th grade. It was 4th or 5th. And we had a hurricane come through. I do remember it was named Hurricane Ike. And it originally wasn't supposed to hit us. And so, like, we had just had a week of school. Like, we had just started school. And we were all outside playing. And the hurricane wasn't supposed to hit. And it took a turn somewhere. And all of us were just outside playing. And we were all jumping on the trampoline. And, like, the trampoline, like, fully shifted where it was in the yard. Like, all of us were playing outside. Like, we were having a fun time because we just thought it was a big windstorm. And, like, everyone thought it was a big windstorm. Like, nobody thought that it was the hurricane that had shifted. And so, like, we were having fun. Like, we were doing silly things of, like, taking American football and, like, throwing it and then, like, catching it again because the wind would throw it right back at us. So, like, we were just having fun. One of the parents came out and was like, oi, it's the hurricane. Like, everyone get inside. And so then we all scattered and went home.
Oh, shoot. So did you guys have service? Cell phone service?
No. So
No?
it knocked out everything for a week. Like, nobody had power for a week. And at the time, cell phones...
If you had been able to charge your phones, would you have had cell phone service?
I don't think so, but also I don't fully remember having cell phones then.
Maybe she had a satellite phone. That's different,
Possible.
Right?
The satellite wouldn't have been knocked out. There we go. We'll go with satellite.
Okay, all right. It had an antenna.
I'm still suspicious, but we have a working theory, and I'm happy with moving on with a working theory. Otherwise, we will be on this forever. So
true.
They say it isn't going to hang out long. And now there is horizontal rain. I have no idea why horizontal rain is important, but apparently it is. And they're now in the core. What is that? And, like, there's now a water tornado happening? Like, what? I'm confused. Or the tornado's on top of the water? Sure. Why not?
I'm sure that can happen.
It does happen, but I don't know if there's different term, if it's a water funnel instead of an air funnel.
My favorite part is they changed you know how in the beginning they had the growl, like the lion growl for so in when there's tornadoes over the water and you see the two of them like kind of, there's this like wind chimey effect that they put on that tornado. And I think it's just like, I don't think it's any scientific reason. They just wanted to make it look different than the other tornadoes and just fun and fairy-like.
Yeah.
I don't know,
They're
but
like,
it works.
oh, it's different. Hey, it works. They are under the flanking line and they can't attack from the south or they'll get rolled. And Bill's like, watch me. And I'm like, oh, they're going to get rolled, but not going to get rolled.
Watch him attack from the south. Ooh.
Yeah. Melissa, meanwhile, still on the phone over there, is like, Julia, breathe. And meanwhile, we see a poor cow that has been lifted into the air. Now, this is one of the things that I do remember from the Twister ride at Universal, is that there is a cow that is being flung around. Poor cow. And then this is a fantastic line. I gotta go, Julia. We got cows.
I gotta go, Julia. We got cows.
And then Joe's just like, oh, look, another cow. And Bill's just like, actually, I think that's the same one.
Yes. And for those who can't picture it, there's a water twister on one side of them and a water twister on the other side. And they're on a road in between, like, it's like a bridge over the water, and they're in between these two. So you got cows flying over the bridge, basically.
Yeah. That poor cow. So Joe tells Bill to get them out of there, and there are those two water tornadoes, and it pretty much engulfs them, the truck, completely. But because they're the heroes, and apparently in this movie physics doesn't physic, like, you know, they spin around a few times, but they survive, and the tornadoes dissipate. Sure.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, like, with tornadoes, there's a lot of stories that happen after each one, and some of them are true, and some of them are very, like, rumory and spread and exaggerated over time. So, like, there's some about, like, chickens that didn't get lifted up into the tornado, but they were completely stripped of their feathers. Like, that's been like a rumor, like an urban myth about tornadoes. Like, they can strip the feathers off of a chicken without lifting it. Like, they'll do all these weird, unexpected things. But I read that one's probably not true because people are like, well, no, that's just stress molting. Like, the wind wasn't powerful enough to lift the chicken up, but the chicken got stressed out and the feathers came up. So
poor chicken.
Yeah, all that is to say, I feel like, the strange, unusual wind patterns can probably do something like spin a truck and not pick it up, especially if it's not a F4 tornado, a super strong tornado.
Yeah, and I will say, like, neither of these two seemed as strong as the one earlier. Mm-hmm. And so it does make maybe a little bit of sense. But, like, I'm just saying.
The movie has a fun, they clue us into the how they're measuring the strength.
Yeah.
The F numeric system.
F scale. We'll get to that a bit later in the episode. That is in this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. We will learn a bit about some of the jargon.
Love it.
Joe and Bill are ecstatic, saying that was incredible. And Melissa is not okay. She's like, this is not okay. Melissa, I slightly feel you. Bill apologizes. He didn't think. And I was like, no. Bill, you do not deserve this because you did think. You told her to go home and she chose to stay. Sure, it's scary, but she made her choice. She's got to live with it. This isn't on you.
Yes. And if Melissa had known, if she had looked on YouTube way back in 96 and understood how dangerous, storm chasing was, if she had looked at all those videos that the corporate sponsors were releasing, and then she would have known that this would be not too
maybe
dangerous.
If she talked to Bill a bit more.
Yeah. If they had communicated better. This doesn't bode well for Bill's communication skills in a relationship. I'm
not saying that Bill's communication skills are good. But I'm not saying that Melissa's are perfect.
She should have better as a relationship counselor.
Yeah. So, anyway, Melissa says that, and this is why I say this is why they didn't talk, is because Melissa says that when you told me that you used to chase volcanoes, deep down I thought it was a metaphor. What the for?
A metaphor for what? I don't know. Before they released the movie Twister, we all thought it was just a metaphor. And now we know what storm chasing looks like.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you understand what chasing a tornado can be a metaphor for, please let me know, because I am baffled.
It's a literary device.
I know what a metaphor is. So the crew is also ecstatic because, why wouldn't you be? Rabbit, I think it's Rabbit, says, hey, we're close to Wakita. Aunt Meg wouldn't mind if we made a pit stop. And I was like, is this the lady in the beginning of the film? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense if it is, because the lady at the beginning should have been Joe's mother. But maybe it was actually Aunt Meg. I don't know. We'll find out.
This is where one of my favorite lines is, where the banner of my Facebook was.
Okay. Cool. If I skip it, tell me. Okay. So Joe says, we are not invading her aunt. And everyone just starts going, food.
That's it.
That's it.
Seymour Hoffman and everyone else going,
food. And she's like, we are absolutely not going there. And I was like, we are 100% going there. Hey, look, we're there. And we're going to take a quick intermission before we figure out who Aunt Meg is and what her deal is. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. I hope you are all enjoying this episode, and if you want to gain access to more bonus content, like access to my notes and access to some of the tier lists that I make and help suggest films and things like that, all of that can be done over at our Patreon, and that can be found at patreon.com/coopforge. So that's patreon.com/CO_OPFORGE. Signing up for any of the tiers gets you different types of bonus content depending on the tier that you sign up for, and a shout out here on the show for every patron that signs up. It really means the world to us, and it helps us grow this show and helps us be able to put the money back into this show to make it a better experience for you, the listeners. That is our entire goal here at Co-op Forge. So thank you all so much if you are considering doing this. Now, if you want to help the show in a non-monetary way, that is fantastic as well. You can do so by just talking about us and sharing it with a friend. Just reach out to a friend and be like, hey, you love movies, or hey, you need an excuse to watch more movies. Check out this show called Post Finale. The host is silly, he's an actor, he's confused most of the time, gets a lot of guesses wrong, but overall it's a lovely time and some interesting discussions about some iconic films. I think you'll really enjoy it. It really does help. And be sure to talk about us on social media and follow us on social media. That really helps out a lot as well. If you're looking for the show, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Post Finale Pod. And then you can also find us at Co-op Forge on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And that's at Co-op Forge at CO_OPFORGE. And we post content not just from Post Finale, but from the other shows here on Co-op Forge as well. So that includes Flip the Scripts, and that includes Seattle Across the Pond. So be sure follow both of those channels. Again, it's at Post Finale Pod and at Co-op Forge, CO_OPFORGE. But just thank you so much for listening to this episode. Wherever you are, if you're enjoying the episode, if you're listening on YouTube, please please hit subscribe. It really does help us out. If you're listening on a podcast app, that's great as well. It doesn't matter to us where you're listening. We're just so thankful that you're listening. But if you're listening on a podcast app, please leave a rating. It really does help us out. Please leave a review and hit that follow button. You can also turn on notifications both on YouTube and on the podcast apps just to be notified when new episodes come out. It really does mean a lot that you are all listening to these episodes, and thank you all so much. So let's get back to the episode without further ado. So we are back, and the boys have found food. So the crew pulls up. Aunt Meg is thrilled to see Billy, and everyone's happy to see Meg, and she's happy to see everybody. So like, it gets me knowing that like, all right, like this is a normal occurrence. Like, you know, she is used to the whole crew coming in every now and again, making pit stops, chatting, and like,
She's
you know,
the best.
hanging out.
She
Lovely.
just has this aura of like cozy, homey warmth. That's what she is in this movie.
Mm-hmm. So in a severe lightning storm, we learn while, you know, food is being thrown around the table, everything's like, you know, getting set, everyone's at the dinner table or dining table. It's not dinner time. It's like the middle of the day. So in a severe lightning storm, you want to grab your ankles and stick your butt in the air. It is the safest way to get hit by lightning. Don't know if that's true. Don't recommend trying it.
I think Denim says that, right?
I believe it is Denim.
I don't know why you would need a safe way to be hit by lightning. I don't know.
I mean, for science.
And I guess that would be the best spot if you have the most meat there. In the butt.
Sure. I don't know. Also, maybe find shelter.
Maybe it was a scientific, like, you know, outing.
Breakthrough. Yeah. They had a goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, Jonas is on the TV, and he's just like, well, it's a man against nature. Tornadoes are very unpredictable, and some of my other unfortunate colleagues found that out today. But we hope to change that with the system I have devised. Here's the other gripe I have with this. Are patents not a thing in the world of Twister?
Not if it hasn't been tested yet, if they haven't, you know, given any, published any papers, documenting the results. It's anyone's game. This is the research phase. No one's invented anything to be patented that like really works for anything yet. They've got a prototype. But
I thought you can patent a prototype.
Oh, maybe their particular funding. I don't know. Maybe their research establishments haven't thought to do that first. I don't know. It would probably be exhausting to try to patent every single idea that your academics had before they even worked. It would probably be an unsustainable thing for an academic department.
Sure.
I don't know.
I mean, I do believe that. But, like, I don't know. Hey, lawyers, hit us up. We need meteorologists. We need storm chasers. Now we need lawyers. This is a whole thing. I have a lot of questions about this film. I am enjoying this film, but I have a lot of questions about how some of the things work in this film.
And maybe this is just different enough, you know, Jonas's invention.
They
just
use cubes and not spheres.
Exactly. It's not proprietary. I don't know.
I don't know.
Not important.
Look, what I can speak on, the performances of everybody in this film, on point. Nobody have I felt at any point in this film is not delivering a good performance.
I just love it so much. I just love Helen Hunt. Like, I just wanted to, as a 6-year-old, I was like, that's the kind of lady I want to be when I grow up. Not that I chase storms, but she just seems so cool. She wasn't wearing, like, a ton of makeup or heels. She just seems so like focused and determined, slightly crazy, but just very cool. I wanted to be her
like
so
that
bad.
In Castaway as well. I want to say she's the lead in Castaway. Other than
she's
Tom
just
Hanks.
got that. She's the female. She's Tom Hanks' wife waiting at home, right?
Yeah, something like that. Love interest.
Yeah, but she just has this very capable face, just very like get it done face, which I always admired her so much.
It's great. She's a wonderful actress. I would love to work with her one day if the opportunity ever presents itself. So everyone is shouting to turn it off, and Dusty says he's going to rue the day when he came up against the extreme. And Melissa finally asks the question, why do you call Bill the extreme? And Dusty just goes, well, because Billy is the extreme. Mwah. Thank you for that expert analysis, Dusty. Can always count on you. Fantastic work. So, Bill is the most out of control son of the in the game. And Bill says, well, second. First being Joe. It's not said, but it's implied. Joe tells them to get some new stories, and she's going to go clean up. And then Joe looks back at the guys as Dusty starts telling a story. So strap in, ladies and gentlemen, it's story time. So this is the story of how they met Bill. They got one near Daleton, and Joe is way too close, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a looking green Valiant comes pulling up right in the way. She starts yelling at him, and this loser, Bill being the loser, stumbles out of the car, and he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand. He's naked, butt naked. Bill's like, I was not naked. And then Denham pops in, and he's like, he was without apparel. And Bill's just like, half naked. So Dusty continues, naked. So Joe's yelling at him to get out of the way. He just strolls up to the Twister and says, have a drink, and chucks the bottle into the Twister, and it never hits the ground. Twister caught it, sucked it right up. Melissa looks like the type of person who won't be able to accept that Bill had a past, which he does still love. That's the vibe I got the entire time Dusty was telling this story.
She's a little shocked. She only knows uptight weatherman Bill. She's a little distraught to hear how ridiculous he was back in the day.
Yeah.
What can you say?
What can you say? I don't know. Me personally, I'd prefer to have, ridiculous Bill a bit. Like, not necessarily all the time. There are places and times.
I think he needs to loosen up a bit. I really do. I think Bill is buttoned far too tight, and his constant outbursts at other people, perceived or otherwise slights, are really obvious in the film. And I think, as we said before, therapy could be a great resource for him if he wishes to pursue it.
Yeah, and we see him start to loosen up in this conversation.
That's true.
Like, we see him starting to joke around. We see him starting to have some fun. And I'm like, oh, like, he is a kind person. Like, he can be kind. He does care. Like, that is there under that exterior.
It's an awesome scene. It lets everyone rest in between twisters, gives everyone some R&R, and lets you see everyone in their element and lets the tension drop, especially between Bill and everyone else.
Right. It's just like, nice. Great. It's back like old times. Like, There's no tension anymore.
It's a great scene. It's lovely.
And then this is where Bill's funny side comes out, and he just goes, honey, it's all a tissue of lies. There was another Bill. An evil Bill. I killed him. Fantastic.
Excellent. She looks shocked this whole time, by the way. She's
just like, what the hell? Then they explain, so throughout the film, ladies and gentlemen, they've been saying, oh, it's an F2, it's an F3, it's an F2, it's an F3. They explain what this is, and it's the Fujita scale. And what the Fujita scale is that it measures the intensity of a tornado by how much it eats. And by eats, they mean destroys. Earlier encounter was a strong F2, maybe an F3. Cool. And they're hoping to see some F4s today. They're not very, common. And a 4 is good. A 4 will relocate your house fairly efficiently. It might miss a room here or there, but it'll do 90% of the job for you.
It'll take 90% of the feathers off a chicken.
Yeah. So Melissa asks if there's an F5, and everyone goes still and quiet. And immediately I was like, the F5 is what sucked up Joe's father, wasn't it? Let me guess, only one of its kind was ever recorded, and it was probably that one that sucked up Joe's father. And they say it would look like the finger of God.
Right, the old man says that, right?
Yeah, the old man is like, it would look like the finger of God.
What does that mean?
Alludes, I have no idea. It reminded me of God's thumb in Holes.
Oh, in Holes,
if you've ever seen that?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no clue.
I think it's an unnecessarily dramatic way to impress upon the viewership what you're going to see in the climax, right?
Yeah.
So dramatic.
I have a prediction, and I don't say this lightly, but it is my most confident prediction on this entire podcast. But Bill alludes that only one of them has ever seen an F5, And I was like, oh, beautiful. I feel pretty good about the prediction that it was Joe's father. So I'm like, okay. So here's an updated prediction, ladies and gentlemen, of what I think is going to happen. I do still think that we're going to lose somebody along the way. Still not sure who it's going to be. Maybe Jonas. Just potentially, like, maybe that driver is like, all right, no, like I have a heart. I'm going to go help them. And Jonas is being a dick to me, so I'm going to leave him behind or whatever. I don't know. Maybe we lose Jonas. It seems surprising that we would lose Melissa, because Bill doesn't really put her in harm's way other than the water funnel twister thingy situation. But he was also there, and I don't think we're losing Joe and Bill. So if Melissa is with Joe and Bill, she's safe. So I still think we're missing some people, and we're gonna lose some people. Bill and Joe will end up together by the end of the film. Melissa is gonna be out of the picture. I still think that's gonna happen. In terms of the twister and what's gonna happen, right? They're still only gonna get Dorothy to work on their final attempt, their fourth and final attempt. And not only are they going to get her up on the last attempt, but the last attempt is also going to be an F5, because big stakes.
Gotta have some big stakes. These are excellent predictions, and I'm excited to see how they play out.
Like I said, this is the most confident I have ever been in a prediction on this podcast. Yes. To the point, ladies and gentlemen, I tend to wear, fun colored shirts and stuff. If I am wrong, I will find some type of outfit, costume, something ridiculous, like more ridiculous than patterned shirts. And I will wear that for a couple of episodes.
Could be Dorothy from Wizard of Oz.
You know what? Why not?
You don't have to commit to anything right now, but just
I won't commit to it, but it's a possibility. And I will say this with 80% likelihood. If I am wrong about this, I will dress up as Dorothy of Wizard of Oz for an episode.
Live. You heard it here, folks. 80% commitment to this idea.
80% commitment. Only reason it's not 100 is I don't know if I can get the materials if I am wrong, and how quickly I might be able to get them to dress up as Dorothy. That's the difficulty here. But I feel like I won't have to, because of how confident I am with this prediction.
I mean, this movie it really does make you feel like you got a handle on what's going to happen. It definitely feels like it follows exactly along with our idea of a big summer hit. Like, that's what we're comparing everything to. Like, we know the arc of a general big summer action special effects hit. And I feel like Independence Day, I always put it in the same kind of realm, because it's that big 4th of July release, like tons of new special effects, great cast, funny one-liners, got some heart, and it's got that predictable arc that once you see how the characters are interacting, you can just call the whole thing. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, hey, I've made my claim. We'll see how well it goes. So Aunt Meg says that Joe will always be beautiful, because apparently Joe's putting on a necklace to look less beautiful. I don't know. I don't understand the concept of this. Also, Helen Hunt, beautiful person. She's just like, oh, it sounds like old times down there. And Aunt Meg says that he didn't keep his end of the bargain. And Joe's like, which part? And she's like, to spend his life pining for you and die miserable and alone. And Joe's like, well, you still might. Positive optimism. Aunt Meg,
perceptive Aunt Meg.
Beautiful. Aunt Meg is just like, look, Bill always went his own way. Usually it was the same way that you were going. And Joe says that, it felt like a long time ago. And Aunt Meg's just like, hey, it's not that long ago. And he's here now, isn't he? Like,
She's saying, engaged ain't married. That's what she's saying.
Engaged ain't married. And the other thing is also, like, him. Maybe, I feel like Aunt Meg here is being like, look, he's here now. Patch things up. And, it's okay. I think, like, underlaying Aunt Meg is also saying, like, hey, like, part of this is your fault as well. It's not all on him. Like, He's here now. You have a chance to patch up what happened between you two.
Yeah,
And
maybe
it's
you
like,
two can grow as people. Who knows?
Yeah, like he might want to settle down a bit. Like he might still enjoy this, but like he wants to settle down a bit. Like, he doesn't want to just continue chasing storms for the rest of his life. Like maybe you need to understand that and hear him out. And it's like, have that conversation, right? Like,
Rather than
I don't think that she's trying to say that Bill is in the wrong and you're in the right. I feel like this is her way of just like lovingly being like, look, he's here now. You have to give it a shot.
make the most of it.
Yeah. Then there's like a really cool, neat, like twister, wind chime, wind spinny turbine thing. What are these things called?
I know what you're talking about. I think it's just modern art. I think Aunt Meg just likes to weld cool things that move in the wind and put them in her yard.
No, but like,
I don't know.
There's got to be a technical term for things that like move in the wind because like they're on top of houses too.
Weather vanes.
Thank you.
There you go.
She has like this really cool weather vane, which is like, in the shape
big old
of a
spiral
twister.
dragon thing.
Yeah, and then it has multiple of them on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful, and it starts moving a bit faster, and it starts picking up some speed. And then Dusty downstairs is like, "We got one. We have an F3 a mile outside of Parlane." I am assuming these are all places in Oklahoma, tiny towns here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I did not look up if
Yeah.
these are tiny towns in Oklahoma and Kansas. So,
I'm sure they are because they didn't fold the maps. They rolled the maps and they can read it all.
there was a crease in Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
So Melissa is going to be riding with Dusty this time, and they are trying to beat Jonas to get there. Aunt Meg says, thank you for stopping by. And Joe's like, I feel bad about, eating and running. And Aunt Meg's just like, it's what you live for.
She's so good. She's just the mom of this movie.
Yeah, she gets them. And she's like, look, I understand. Like, they just need, a home-cooked meal every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
When they come in, it's lovely. We have a wonderful time. We chat,
and
we
slaughter
laugh.
a whole cow.
I slaughter a whole cow for you. Oh, yeah, we kind of skipped over that. She makes her own beef.
Makes her own beef. She's like, did you see my cows out front? No.
No.
Oh! I love it.
It's fantastic. And they're off, and, they're asking Rabbit, do we have any shortcuts? We're going to need them. We need every single second. And we're off to go chase down another tornado. But before we, get to that next tornado, we have to end this episode because I legitimately haven't seen anything else.
Leave you in suspense. See what an F3 looks like.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna find out because I'm assuming that the first one was an F2, maybe an F3 was the first one that we saw, not the very first one. That was obviously an F5, which they allude to. That sucked up Joe's dad. Bye, Dad. So the first one that they chased, where we didn't understand how physics, with it pulling up both the truck and the bridge, but not the people under the bridge. No sense there. I'm assuming that one was probably an F3. And then the water funnel system was probably an F2.
Got it. Yeah,
so that's my guess.
Here's my question to you. Because we are, in 2024, looking back at a 1996 movie. What are your thoughts on the tornado effects? Did it put you in the moment? Did it take you out of the moment? Did it seem realistic? What were your thoughts?
It seemed realistic. Honestly, like
I know.
it holds up really well. The only thing that a lot of times with these 90s films, the main thing that gets me is the lightning. The
really?
Lightning rarely looks realistic to me.
And did it look realistic in Twister?
It looked fine. I wouldn't say it looked realistic, but it wasn't so like, oh, like that, like what in the world? Like, but like I've seen lots of lightning in my life, just, know.
And in Twister, the ride, they do have lightning that strikes one of the structures in front of you. So it's like for people who haven't been on it, it's kind of really cool. It's like,
Oh,
I don't
it's
know
a
if they still
really fun
exist.
ride.
Yeah,
Like
it's an
I
experience. Like you stand there and you're kind of sheltering under something, and then they basically show you a scene of cool practical effects and pyrotechnics that make you feel like you're sheltering from a tornado in one of the scenes from the movie. And it was like, I remember only going to Universal once in my life. That was my favorite ride that I did there. It was that cool.
I remember like we went a couple times and it was usually like I think like my family made a trip down once and then like someone came to visit so we made another trip down once. So I think like that was kind of the situation there. But I remember like one time and I don't remember when it was, but like we went on the ride, had a blast. And then we got out of the ride and we were all talking about the ride. And then we realized that like all of us kind of missed a different element of the ride. So we just went and got back in line and did the ride again so that we could all catch the other element that we missed.
It was awesome. It was that cool. It was a lot of like, you don't know what's going to happen next. It felt like something was going to fall on you or start burning you up or spray you with water. Like it was very cool.
I think they did spray you with water too in the middle of that ride.
I bet they're going to do some kind of resurgence of it now that the next movie, the remake, is coming out, or the sequel.
Yeah. But like it's one of those rides where like you don't think it's going to be a lot of fun because like all you're doing is walking into a room and standing there. But like,
and it shocks you with how fun it was.
It's so entertaining. Mm-hmm. And like I remember that they showed a clip from the movie or like a couple clips from the movie. I have no idea what clips from the movie. Like I don't remember any
That's
of
good because it's letting you experience this movie for the first time.
Yeah, I just remember that they showed clips from the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I'm really here for this film. It's very fun. Like I said, I feel very confident in knowing what is coming. I say this with caution that I'm very confident because the last time I was very confident, I was very wrong, and I've added stakes.
Which movie was that you were so wrong with?
I was wrong with legitimately Barbie Fairytopia. Which I feel like I should have gotten better considering it's a movie made for 6-year-olds, but didn't. Or one of the sequels. So like definitely those I've messed up. I mean I got the majority of it, but like I'd missed like one little bit. And then I want to say it was Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's a tough one to predict if you haven't seen it before.
I hadn't seen it.
The whole point of that movie is that
I felt fairly confident about what was going to happen. And then there was the twist at the end, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, that movie thrived on being unpredictable, don't you think? You can't, if you've never seen it before, you got to be humbled by that. You got to be like, I'm just going to be taken for a ride, and it's going to be very subversive and very non-traditional. And I
enjoyed it. It was a ride. We did them for Halloween last year. I have no idea what I'm doing for Halloween this year. So if anyone has recommendations of what I should watch during October, let me know. But
I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this. Megan, thank you so much for joining. If people want to find you on the internet doing your thing, where can they do that?
Yes. As you mentioned before, I'm a health coach. I help people with meal planning, with weight loss, all that stuff. So if you're interested in that, or you just want to see like free tips, meal ideas, if you want to join my free meal planning club, we meet every Thursday. That can be all found on my Instagram, which is partake_foodie. And you can also see my website, which is partakemealplanning.com.
Wonderful. And links to both of those will be down in the episode description, whatever platform you were listening on, for ease of finding them. But Megan, thank you so much once again for joining and also recommending this film. I'm having a blast. It's summertime. We're here. We're doing a summer blockbuster. It's a good time. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. And until next week, when I guess we're going to see what an F3 looks like, I'll catch y'all later. Hello everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. Post Finale is created, hosted, and produced by me, Ankit Madhira. Our editor is Pranav Nair. The music is by Ankit Madhira and Megan Hutcherson, and the art is by Jarid Rother. If you are all enjoying this episode and want to gain access to more bonus content, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/coopforge and signing up for any of the tiers. You get loads of different bonus content, such as notes and commentary that we have as we're watching the films, as well as some bonus audio, some bonus videos, and ad-free episodes, early access if we get them done early, and different things like that. All of that can be found at patreon.com/coopforge, and that's patreon.com/co_opforge. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, that's great as well. Tell a friend about the show. Just reach out and be like, hey, you love films, or hey, you need an excuse to watch some more films. Check out the show called Post Finale. The host is an actor, and he's funny and silly, confused most of the time, but they have interesting discussions about some popular films that I think you would really enjoy. It really does help us out a lot. Be sure to talk about us on social media at Post Finale Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also follow us at CoOpForge, that's CO_OPFORGE, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And there we post content not just from Post Finale, but also from the other shows hosted here on CoOpForge, which are Flip the Scripts and Seattle Across the Pond. So a lot of fun things can be found over there on our social media. It really, really does help us out a lot. Thank you to everyone who has already done this. Thank you to everyone who will do this in the future. It really does mean a lot to us, and it helps us create better content for you, the listeners, as we grow. It really does help, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale, and I can't wait until next week. And until then, I'll catch y'all later.